everyone. Thank you for joining me once again right here on Actual English. I am Jennifer Clyde. Now it is time for lesson 70. We've been talking about animal or pet-related topics, and today let's talk about endangered species or endangered animals. Now the word endangered means that these animals or certain species are in danger of extinction. Now, if certain plants or even animals become extinct, it means that they disappear. They no longer exist. They are no longer in existence. Okay? So, how many species are we actually losing? Each and every day or every year. People say that is $1 million question because no one really knows the answer. I mean, we don't even know what's out there, right? But actually, when it comes to maybe the past and species that have disappeared, okay, or have become extinct. In the past or in the distant past, many animal species did become extinct. They went extinct because of natural causes, such as the climate, for example, or weather changes, changes in weather patterns. Or even animals, let's say one animal could have made another animal extinct because it was stronger and faster. But I think in like the past, shorter past, as human beings are on Earth, I think a lot of animals are becoming extinct or are endangered because of us, because of hunting, for example, because of pollution, because of destruction of the places they live in. So a lot of the reasons as to why animals or species are endangered or becoming extinct is, it's our fault, I guess. Anyhow, let's talk about endangered animals once again, first of all, by checking out today's Actual Talk.
Peter,
yeah.
There have been a lot of efforts in preserving animals on the endangered species list.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's really important to maintain biological diversity.
Right.
Even if the species has no use, for humans, I think it's our responsibility.
I agree, because I think that even if they don't have a specific use for us humans, like you mentioned, if they do go extinct, I think that wrecks the whole ecosystem.
Exactly.
So it is, in that sense, it indirectly affects human beings.
Sure. All those food cycles and things like that.
Right, exactly.
And once it's gone, it's really difficult to bring back. We haven't yet come to the stage where we can do Jurassic Park style reincarnations of dead animals.
Dinosaurs.
But even here in Korea, there's some endangered species. Like the famous one I could think of is the half-moon bear. I think there's only a handful of these bears left on some mountains down in the southern part of the country.
Oh, okay.
There's huge efforts to try and regenerate the population.
Yeah, and like you said, I think that's really important. I think that tigers used to be indigenous to Korea as well, but they're no longer here.
There's none in South Korea. No wild ones. There's some in the zoo, but they don't count, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of effort has been put into preserving panda bears.
Sure, the WWF, it's their pin-up symbol.
Right,
almost.
Exactly. And they're kind of forcefully creating pandas to mate and have little babies, and I always see that in the news.
Yeah, in China they're hugely popular. People go and watch them in the zoos and things like that.
And to be honest, it makes me feel good because they are part of the ecosystem, and it makes me happy to see that we are trying to preserve the wildlife.
Yeah, it does help when the animal is aesthetically pleasing, when it's so cute and adorable like a bear. Yeah, maybe if it was some kind of insect that we're trying to preserve, we wouldn't get behind it so much.
That's true.
But I think they're just as important, insects too.
Yes, I that's true. So I think it is really important to make sure that these endangered species are no longer on that list.
Exactly. We get rid of that list. There's no endangered species on the planet.
Well, even today, Rachel and Peter has helped us out with a wonderful conversation. That was today's Actual Talk. Now, what were they talking about? Of course, endangered animals. They did mention the word species several times. Even words such as extinction, extinct, preserve, right? So let's take a look at what they mentioned, line by line. First of all, Rachel says, Peter, there have been a lot of efforts. Okay, so it's not just one effort, but constant. It's been happening from before. there have been a lot of efforts in preserving animals, okay, on the endangered species list. But let's break that up into two. Now, preserve here means to protect, okay, it means to protect. So there have been a lot of efforts in protecting animals, not just any animal, but animals on the endangered species list. There actually is a red book, okay, and it actually is an endangered species list. The list is in the red book, and endangered, once again, animals or even plants that are on the verge of extinction, that will soon disappear, okay? They're at a danger of disappearing. So these animals, a lot of efforts, a lot of people have been trying to, they have been putting a lot of effort in or effort into protecting these animals that could go extinct, endangered animals. Now Peter says, oh, absolutely, of course, yes, for sure. And then he says, I think that's really important. Okay, now that meaning doing that, it's really important to maintain biological diversity. Now, biological diversity is also known as biodiversity, okay? Biodiversity in one word, and it means an abundance of an animal, especially in a particular area or region, for example. So he's saying it's very, very important to maintain, to keep, right, the abundance or an abundance of biological diversity. I think it's our responsibility. Okay, now here are, okay, O-U-R can be pronounced as our, as an H-O-U-R or R, okay, as an A-R-E. There are two ways to pronounce it. But what Peter is saying, not R as in you and me. So he's not talking about himself and Rachel, he's talking about us, people in general. So I think it's our responsibility. I think the responsibility is ours, meaning people's responsibility. Rachel says, I agree. And then she talks about why she agrees. Because even if they don't have a specific use for us humans, even if they are not helpful to us humans, if they do go extinct, I think that wrecks the whole ecosystem. So here, she's talking about the possibility. If by any chance it happens, if by any chance they do go extinct, they disappear, okay? There are no longer any of these species remaining on Earth. I think that wrecks. Wreck is another word for destruction, okay? To destroy something that destroys the whole ecosystem. Ecosystem also can be pronounced both ways, ecosystem or ecosystem, okay? So, yes, if they do disappear for good, if they no longer exist, if they go extinct, that destroys, that wrecks the whole ecosystem. So in that sense, it affects human beings. It affects us. It affects people, okay? Affect meaning to influence, okay? All right, and then Peter says, sure, and once it's gone, he's talking about, well, any kind of species. It can be a plant or animal. Now, if a certain species is gone, if it goes extinct, if it disappears, it's really difficult to bring back. I added the it here. It can be omitted as well. Peter said, bring back, okay, bring back, bring something back. So if they disappear, it's hard to bring them back. They will be gone for good, gone forever. And he talks about Korea. In Korea, there are some endangered species. Even in Korea, yes, of course. And then he gives an example, like, meaning such as, the famous one I can think of is the half-moon bear. 반달곰. That's very simple, right? Half moon, 반달, bear, 곰. Also known as the Asian black bear. And he says, I think there are only a handful of these bears left, meaning remaining, okay? A handful of. Here, let's take a look at handful of. Imagine that you are holding something in your hand. A handful of something. Do you think it's a lot of something or a little bit of something? There's not much you can hold in one hand. 한 손으로 많은 거를 잡을 수 없잖아요. 그래서 handful of something이라고 하면은 적은 수를 말합니다. A small number or quantity of something. So he's saying, I think there are only a handful of these bears left. Only a little bit of them remaining. Them being left, okay? And then he says there are huge efforts, big efforts, okay, to try and regenerate the population. Population, you can of course talk about the number of people, okay? Population, of course, the number of animals can also be referred to as population, the whole number of these animals, okay? So there are huge efforts to try and regenerate. It means to revive, bring back to life, okay? So simply put, yeah, there are a lot of efforts to try to regenerate, bring them back to life, or even save them, to protect the population. I think that tigers, now Rachel talks about tigers. Tigers used to be, meaning not anymore. They used to be in the past indigenous to Korea. Okay, indigenous to a certain area. It means to be native to, originate from a certain area, meaning tigers used to be indigenous to Korea, meaning tigers were native to Korea, okay? But they are no longer here. But not anymore. They are no longer here in Korea. Now, Peter says, true, there are none, meaning zero, none in South Korea. But of course, he's talking about wild ones. There are tigers, of course. You can go to the zoos and see tigers. But of course, he's talking about wild ones. 야생, 야생 호랑이, right? The wild tigers. And then, of course, Rachel agrees, yeah, I know. No wild ones. No wild ones remain. There are no more wild tigers left in Korea. And then Peter mentions there are some. Okay, there are some where? In the zoo or at the zoos, but they don't count, right? Don't count. Let's take a look at this. Don't count does not necessarily, in this case, mean to count something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you say, oh, it counts, it means it is important. But here it's used in the negative form. He's saying, but they don't count. It means it's not important. Meaning, yes, these wild tigers no longer exist in Korea. There are some in the zoo or in the zoos, but they don't count, meaning that number of tigers in the zoos, well, it's not important. They don't count. Rachel says, right, I think a lot of effort has been put into. These two almost always go together. Effort put into preserving panda bears. So we're talking about panda bears, 팬더곰. So preserving once again means to protect, right? To protect. Moving on. The WWF, of course, Peter mentions, it stands for Worldwide Fund for Nature. This I'm sure you all know of or even heard of. He's talking about a nonprofit organization called the WWF, and it says it's their pinup symbol. It's like their symbol, panda bears. But what is a pinup? Okay, a pinup in most cases, all right, the easiest definition for pinup is actually like a big poster or a huge photograph, usually to be hung on walls, for example, okay? But these posters or pictures are usually of very attractive women. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of pinups, but he is just saying that the panda bears are like the main symbol. They're pinup symbols, meaning when you travel to places, you'll see big posters and things of panda bears, okay? It is the pinup of or the symbol of the WWF. Once again, a non-profit organization. Now, Rachel gives us some information. She says, and they're kind of forcibly making pandas, what? Mate. Reproduce, have babies, okay? And I always see that in the news. Always see something in the news. And she says, it makes me happy to see that we are trying to preserve wildlife once again. So we're hearing a lot of preserve today. Save, right? To protect, okay? Wildlife. Moving on. Peter says, yeah, it does help when the animal is aesthetically pleasing. We talked about aesthetic or aesthetically pleasing. It means to be beautiful, pleasing, okay? Meaning that it's very pretty, physically very pretty. When it is so cute and adorable, okay? It helps. It helps actually here means it matters, okay? It matters. So if an animal is cute, if it's adorable, yeah, it's easier to help them. And he says, like a bear, for example, maybe if it was some kind of insect and not a bear, we wouldn't get behind it so much. To get behind something could literally mean to get behind something, stand behind something, but here it means to encourage, to help, okay? And he says, but I think they are just as important, insects too. He's talking about how insects are just as important as animals such as bears. Now, Rachel says, yes, so I think it is really important to make sure that these endangered species are no longer on that list. Now here we have the list once again, as I mentioned in the beginning of today's actual talk. Yes, they were talking about an endangered species or an endangered animal list. I mentioned that it is a red book. So yeah, she's saying, I think it's important that we all try, that people try hard to save or preserve these endangered species so that they no longer are on the list, are included in the list. All right then, let's have a listen one more time.
You know, Peter,
Yeah.
there have been a lot of efforts in preserving animals on the endangered species list.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's really important to maintain biological diversity.
Right.
Even if the species has no use, for
Yeah.
humans, I think it's our responsibility.
I agree, because I think that even if they don't have a specific use for us humans, like you mentioned, if they do go extinct, I think that wrecks the whole ecosystem.
Exactly.
So it is, in that sense, it indirectly affects human beings.
Sure. All
Yeah.
those food cycles and things like
Right,
that.
exactly.
And once it's gone, it's really difficult to bring back. We haven't yet come to the stage where we can do Jurassic Park style
Right.
reincarnations of,
Right.
of dead animals.
Dinosaurs
Yeah.
and yes.
But even here in Korea, there's some endangered species. Like the famous one I could think of is the half-moon bear. I think there's
Okay.
only a handful of these bears left on some mountains down in the southern part of the country.
Oh, okay.
There's huge efforts to try and regenerate the
Yeah,
population.
and like you said, I think that's really important. I think that tigers used to be indigenous to Korea as well, but they're no longer
Sure,
here.
there's none in South Korea. No
Right.
wild ones.
No
There's
wild
some in the
ones.
zoo, but
Right.
they don't count, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of effort has been put into preserving panda bears.
Sure,
Yeah.
the WWF, it's their pin-up symbol.
Right,
almost.
exactly. And they're kind of forcefully creating pandas to mate and have little
Sure.
babies. And I always see that in the news.
Yeah, in China, they're hugely popular. People go and watch them in the zoos and things like that.
And to be honest, it makes me feel good because they are part of the ecosystem,
Yeah.
and it makes me happy to see that we are trying to preserve the wildlife.
Yeah, it does help when the animal is aesthetically pleasing, when it's so cute
They're
and
so
adorable,
cute.
like a bear.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe if it was some kind of insect that we're trying to preserve, we wouldn't get behind it so
That's
much.
true.
But I think they're just as important, insects too.
Yes, that's true. So I think it is really important to make sure that these endangered species are no longer on that list.
Exactly. We get rid of that list. There's no endangered species on the planet.
Okay, welcome back everyone. Did you enjoy the conversation one last time? Let's move on to actual expressions. As always, I've got some vocab words for you. Let's go over the words we saw in today's actual talk. 4 of them. Endangered. The stress goes right here. We mentioned this word many, many times today, so I hope you remember what it means and know how to pronounce it. Let's practice the pronunciation 2 times. Endangered. Endangered. Good job. Some synonyms are threatened, at risk of dying out, disappearing, no longer existing. 멸종 위기, So keep that in mind, endangered. Now let's talk about wreck as well. Something can wreck something. I think this is what Rachel mentioned, that something or it can actually wreck the ecosystem, right? It means to destroy. Also, to regenerate, R-E means again, right? So regenerate means to bring back to life, means to restore, even revive, bring back to life. And let's check out one more. We were talking about a certain species of animals. I think we were talking about the tiger, right? Okay, so indigenous, stress goes right here. Primitive, native or native to, or even inborn. So keep these vocab words in mind, and hopefully you'll have a chance to use them the next time you talk about endangered animals, plants, or any kind of species. Let's move on to some patterns. We've got 4 for you today. Now, to go extinct is very important. To go extinct means what? To disappear completely, to no longer be in existence. Sea lions are endangered species. They are endangered species. The number of sea lions is dropping, okay, and soon believed to go extinct. So sea lions, there are a little bit of them left right now, but the number of sea lions is dying out, okay? It's decreasing little by little, and soon they could go extinct. They could disappear for good. What about this one? The Caspian tiger. It's a type of tiger. The 3rd largest. Went extinct more than 40 years ago. So go extinct, past tense. Go, went. They went extinct when? More than 40 years ago. So that's what you can say when you want to mention something about an animal species that has already disappeared, that has already gone extinct. Our next pattern, make or put an effort in or into plus verb form in the ing. Here we go. I put extra effort in trying to bring my grades back up. So, if your grades dropped drastically and you are trying very hard to bring your grades back up, okay, to get better grades, you can say, I put extra effort in or into trying to bring my grades back up. Here we go. Why haven't you made any effort? Here we've got made in place of put. Why haven't you made any effort into making up with her? So if you have a friend or friends that have fought, that have had an argument, and they're not talking to each other, you can ask one of your friends, why haven't you made any effort or made an effort into making up with her or trying to make up with her? Okay? Here we go. With one last pattern, get behind something or someone. As I mentioned, it could mean to actually stand or be positioned behind something, but yes, I told you it means to encourage, right? So, my publishers didn't get behind what? My new book. They didn't do anything about it. One more time. My publishers didn't get behind my book or my new book, the book that I've written, a newly written book. Well, they didn't do anything about it. Okay? So that is, of course, get behind something or someone. Just keep in mind to support or even encourage. All right, that is a wrap for today's Actual Expressions.
So I've heard a lot about endangered animals, and in America we have preservation set up to kind of resupply the endangered animals. Over the summer, I worked at a national park in North Dakota, and one of the biggest things that North Dakota has is bison, really big animals. But back in like the late 1800s, it was really popular for cowboys and stuff to hunt them and just use their fur to sell. And so the population of bison went way down in like just those 30 years in the 1800s. I think there were only like 500 left. But now, because of national parks and preservations, there are a lot of parks just full of bison. And it's really cool being able to like drive through the national park and see this whole herds of bison, be able to walk past them. So I think it's really important to be able to like preserve that and just see what animals exist in the world.
How did you enjoy today's actual story? Christina helped us out one more time, and she did talk about today's topic wonderfully, I think, endangered animals. Let's check out what she mentioned. Now, imagine that you were in Christina's situation, in her position, and somebody asked you about what you thought about endangered animals. This is a wonderful way to start, okay? Almost any way is a great way to start, but it's a very smooth, a very natural way to start. I've heard a lot about endangered animals. So, you can say this about any topic when you start. Yes, I've heard a lot about blah, blah, blah. I've heard a lot about endangered animals. Boom, that's our topic. That's what you are going to talk about. Over the summer, she's talking about her past experience. I worked, past tense, where? At a national park. Where? In North Dakota. Okay, I worked at a national park in North Dakota. And then she says it's really cool, it's wonderful, it's really great being able to drive through, okay, drive through the national park and see just whole herds of bison, okay? When we talk about groups of animals, it can be sheep, it can be bison, it can be horses. A herd is just a big group of animals. So she's saying it's wonderful that now, because of these national parks, because they have really put a lot of effort into preserving or protecting these animals, we are able to see many, many of them. Whole herds of bison. Wonderful job. Thanks to Christina once again. Have a listen. Here we go.
So I've heard a lot about endangered animals, and in America we have preservation set up to kind of, resupply the endangered animals. Over the summer, I worked at a national park in North Dakota, and one of the biggest things that North Dakota has is bison, really big animals. But back in like the late 1800s, it was really popular for cowboys and stuff to hunt them and just use their fur to sell. And so the population of bison went way down in like just those 30 years in the 1800s. I think there were only like 500 left. But now, because of national parks and preservations, there are a lot of parks just full of bison. And it's really cool being able to like drive through the national park and see this whole herds of bison, be able to walk past them. So I think it's really important to be able to like preserve that and just see what animals exist in the world.
Now, bison was what Christina mentioned, and S can be added, but I think in most cases it's just called a bison, even in the plural form, but they're also known as American buffaloes. Now, its small population is protected, especially in, I believe, western areas, small areas in the US and Canada. So, yeah, I would have to say there aren't many of them. There is a small population of them remaining, okay? So I guess you can say that they are an endangered species as well. So that was our topic today, and let's wrap it all up. Okay, let's close the group and start with a brand new category. Let's talk about our favorite TV shows next time. Sounds like a lot of fun, right? In the meantime, come to our homepage, find your way over to www.ebse.co.kr and just search for Actual English with Jennifer. Now, leave us some comments, feedback, anything you wish. Even a simple hello would be wonderful as well. Okay, until next time, take care, everyone. Bye for now.